Bismillah, alhamdulillah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to proceed. Today, inshallah, we will have two chapters. They are shorter chapters. Bab Ihya al-Mawad, the chapter on reviving barren land, and Bab al-Jala, the chapter on per job wages. First, the chapter of Ihya al-Mawad, reviving barren land. Reviving barren land in general, the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever revives barren land, it will be his. And the reason we have this ruling in Islam, the wisdom of this, it is in the book. Many wisdoms. One of the wisdoms is to encourage entrepreneurship. One of the wisdom is to help people that were not handed down wealth from their ancestors. One of the wisdoms is to encourage the development of the land, the stewardship of the earth. Stewardship of earth and the good development of earth is a cultural mandate. إِنِّي جَعَلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. I will, make a vicegerent on earth. And to spread out and to basically it would be good for the economy. It will certainly grow the economy. So many reasons why this ruling is good for this community. Then Imam Qudamah rahimahullah, who died in the year 620 after Hijrah, said in his book Umdat al-Fiqh, under the chapter of reviving barren land or Ihya al-Mawad, وهي الأرض الداثرة التي لا يعرف لها مالك. This is about wasteland that has no known owner. This is about wasteland that has no known owner. فمن أحياها ملكها. لقول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أحيا أرضا ميتة فهي له. Whoever revives it owns it. According to the hadith of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, whoever revives barren land shall become the owner of the land. This hadith was reported by Tirmidhi, and Tirmidhi considered it Hasan, reliable. وأحياؤها عمارتها بما تتهيأ به لما يراد منها كالتحويط عليها وسوق الماء إليها إذا أرادها للزرع وقلع أشجارها وأحجارها المانعة من غرسها وزرعها. Revival of a land means preparing it for the desired activity, such as enclosing it. Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ahata ha'itan ala ardin fahiya lahu." Whoever enclosed a piece of land with a wall, it shall be his. Enclosing it, this is a controversial hadith. It's reported by Imam Ahmad and Abu Dawood, but it is a controversial hadith. Some consider it reliable. But the scholars do accept the meaning of that hadith, because that's one of the ways that you would be claiming the land. So this hadith is a secondary, is basically not initiating a primary ruling here. It is talking about the sort of the conditions of the ruling that was established by the other hadith, which is whoever revives a barren land, it shall be his. وَسَوْقِ الْمَاءِ إِلَيْهَا, such as enclosing it, conveying water to it in order to cultivate it, and or removing trees and stones that prevent its cultivation. Basically, it is not like you're just going to say, this land is mine. You will have to do something, to own it, to claim it, and to own it. Now, so the Prophet's statement is an absolute statement, right? It's not qualified. Whoever revives a barren land, that shall be his. Well, some of the scholars qualified it. It shall be his upon the permission of the Imam, authorities. Upon the permission of the Imam or authorities. But how do you qualify it when you don't have something to qualify it by? It's an absolute statement. How do you qualify the absolute? How do you specify the general without evidence? No, they said they have evidence. The Hanafis said they have evidence. The Malikis also qualified it. It's not only the Hanafis. The Hanafis qualified it in all conditions, whether this land is far away from the inhabited areas, close to the inhabited areas, any land. You have to take permission from the Imam, from the authorities, to claim the land. You have to take permission from the Imam or authorities to claim the land. So how do you qualify it? You qualify it by the concept of maslaha, the concept of public interest. You say that this must have meant that. Otherwise, people, particularly rich people, particularly nowadays, can you imagine without the Hanafi position, no state will be able to afford to, let me take this back. I don't judge anything, but it would be very hard for any state to take the Shafi'i or Hanbali position and allow any company or entity to just claim any land and build a wall around it and own it. You know, the land is owned by the state. When you get into a social contract with the rest of your co-citizens, compatriots, you're agreeing to give up some of your rights to get into a social contract that will bring you out of the wilderness into civilization. So that social contract gives the state some powers and authorities. We have always in Islam recognized the powers and authorities of the state. We've always recognized the power and authority of the state because we value civilization. And we could devote a whole lecture, dedicate a whole lecture to that issue. But, so that's what the Hanafis are saying, that this is a command. So how did the Hanafis understood this when they said that this is pending the permission of the Imam? They said that this speech, although it is directed at the Ummah in general, but it is directed to the Ummah through the Imam. So it is the Prophet ﷺ is saying to the Imams, let people own the land they revive unless there is a reason to not let them own it. Unless you deem it inappropriate. Unless you deem it counter to public interest. But make the default such that you let people, and that's a point of agreement between all the four Imams. This is the default. The Imam should allow people, even in the Hanafis, in the Hanafi madhab, or according to the Hanafis, the Imam should allow people to own the land they revived. But then you may say that the Hanafis are allowing the Imam to regulate this, to regulate it, so that it is not just like completely out of control. And any company can take up any land and own it and, claim it. The Malikis agreed with the Shafi'is and Hanbalis if this land is really wasteland far away from inhabited areas. But if it is close to the territory of the city or to the inhabited areas, the Malikis said they need the permission. If it is close to the city, they need the permission from the Imam. So they agreed with the Hanafis when it concerning land that's close to inhabited areas. They agreed with the Shafi'is and Hanbalis concerning land that's far away from inhabited area. Nowadays, because of public interest, the Shafi'i and Hanbali position are extremely hard to adopt by any state. Therefore, the Hanafi position seems to be the most practical for any state. And the Hanafi position is not to not allow people to own the land they revived. It is saying that this address is directed at the Imams, the authorities, to allow, the Imams allow, not automatic. It's not like, they're going to go and revive it and automatically it becomes yours. But the Imams will allow you, because of that command from the Prophet ﷺ, will allow you to take the land, to own, to claim the land that you have revived, with whatever regulations they deem to be appropriate for public interest. Okay. Then the Sheikh said, وإن حفر فيها بئرا فوصل إلى الماء ملك حريمة وهو 50 ذراعا من كل جانب إن كانت عادية، وحريم البئر البديء 25 ذراعا، وإن حفر فيها بئرا فوصل إلى الماء ملك حريمه. When someone digs out a well and reaches water, he or she becomes the owner of a distance of 50 cubits. Cubit is ذراع. ذراع is about 48 centimeters. From all sides of the well, if it is redug. As for a new well, the distance is 25 cubits if it is newly dug. So you dig a well, and then a radius of 50 cubits will be yours. Why? Because that is what it took to get water out. You know, the rope and all of the sort of the equipment and the rope and so on. So that'll give you room basically to utilize the well. Or 25 if it is a new well. If it is redug, it is 50. If it is new, it is 25. What's the difference? It probably took a longer rope to get water out of the redug well. They call it Adiyya in reference to the tribe of Ad. The Arabs at the time, whenever they wanted to say something really ancient, they would say Adiyya, meaning, you know, from the time of Ad. So it just means old, it means ancient. So it's a well that you redug. Now you get 50 cubits around it. You can claim 50 cubits around it if it's redug. If it is new, you get 25. Well, the 50 and 25, this was reported by Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib from the Prophet ﷺ directly. So Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib has never seen the Prophet ﷺ. But Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib is one of the most sort of the greatest tabi'een and greatest scholars of hadith and so on. So Marasil Sa'id, which means that the hadith that the Sa'id reports directly from the Prophet without mentioning the companion, they have a little bit extra strength than the Marasil of others. And the Marasil in general, the Mursal hadith in general, Marasil would be plural of Mursal hadith in general, they are not outright rejected by all the scholars, but most of the scholars of hadith do not accept the Mursal, unless it is corroborated by another Mursal or by the statements of the Sahaba. There are certain conditions that you study in Mustalah al-Hadith for the acceptance of Mursal by the majority of the scholars of hadith. Having said that, certainly this hadith would qualify for Imam Ahmad to act upon, because Imam Ahmad would act upon da'if hadith, but da'if in his sense is not the matruk, it is not the rejected. But this would qualify. So Hanbali wise, this would be absolutely justifiable to count on this hadith for this ruling. Modern application. So what do we do in modern application? People will have different takes on this. Some people who are more literalist, they will stick to 50 and 25. Some people will say that 50 and 25 was meant to allow for drawing up water from the well and allow for the rope and the equipment. But if you can have a little machine here that pulls up the water, then all you need is basically a sort of whatever, like 2 meters around it to pull up the water. And that would be a valid interpretation. That would be a valid sort of ijtihad. A valid ijtihad. Looking at the intent of the legislator, looking at the maqsad of ash-shara. It would be valid. Now, We're done. We're done with this chapter. Simple chapter, isn't it? What we learned from this chapter is that whoever revives a barren land, nowadays all the states are taking the Hanafi position that they should be allowed by the authorities to own it unless it is counter to public interest. But the default is that they should be allowed by. Shafi'is and Hanbalis said without the permission of the Imam. You revive it, it becomes yours, it's automatic. The Imam has no say in this. Authorities have no say in this. But certainly in our times, go convince any state of that. Okay. Now, the next chapter is a little bit longer. It's Babul Jala. It is the chapter on per job wages. Imam Qudamah rahimahullah said, وهي أن يقول من رد لقطتي أو ضالتي أو بنى لي هذا الحائط فله كذا. Chapter on per job wages, Jala. An example of per job wages is when someone says, I will pay such and such to whoever finds my lost item, or I will pay such and such to whoever builds me this wall. Ja'ala, you know what Ju'al is? Ju'al is prize money. Ju'al is prize money. You could say compensation, prize money. Ja'ala is a form of ijara. Is a form of ijara. We said before that ijara means two things. If it is services, you're hiring someone to provide services for you and you pay them for services. If it is a property, it means renting or leasing. You rent, you lease, it's called ijara still. So the two types. Ja'ala is what is a form of ijara, but which ijara? Services. Services. It's a form of the service ijara. We will come to the chapter of ijara and we will talk about the conditions of ijara. So if we are saying ja'ala is a type of ijara, what is the difference between ja'ala and ijara? There are certain differences. One, first of all, ja'ala is permissible according to the Jumhur. The Hanafis said it is not. But here we will take the Jumhur's side because the Hanafi position will make it very difficult, and the Jumhur's side is much more practical and also supported by the evidence. So the Jumhur, let's describe Ja'ala first, and then we talk about the disagreement over the ruling of Ja'ala and whether it is permissible or not. Ja'ala is to say, if you build me this wall, you get this much money. If you fix this for me, nowadays it's much easier. You get a plumber and you tell him, if you fix it, you get this much money. If you don't fix it, you don't get anything. Or if you find my lost item, you get this much money. وَلِمَنْ جَاءَ بِهِ حِمْلُ بَعِيرٌ وَأَنَا بِهِ زَعِيمٌ. Surah Yusuf. Whoever finds it, whoever finds the cup of the king, will get a camel's load of goods, and I guarantee that, and I am the guarantor of that. That's Ja'ala, isn't it? Is Shar'a man qablana shar'un lana? Is the legislation of those before us a legislation before us? Controversial. The majority said it is, given two conditions. What is the first? It was conveyed to us in the Quran and the Sunnah, not conveyed to us through the Bible. Second is what? It was not abrogated by the Quran or Sunnah. You meet those two conditions, and then the Jumhur will say what? شَرْعُ مَنْ قَبْلَنَا شَرْعٌ لَنَا. The legislation for those before us is a legislation for us. If it is conveyed to us in the Quran and Sunnah, it was not abrogated by the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay, so here, whoever brings it, the cup of the king, produces it, brings it forth, will get a camel's load of goods, and I guarantee that. So that's a form of ja'ala. And then the Sheikh will also give us like the hadith of the ladiq, or the person who was stung by the snake or scorpion. But so ja'ala is to say this. So what is the difference then between ja'ala and ijara? Ja'ala, the work, which is the subject matter of the contract, is not known. Whoever finds my lost item will get such and such. How much work does it take to find your lost item? Whoever fixes my car, whoever fixes whatever part of my car, the transmission, will get such and such. How much work? We didn't agree. That doesn't work in ijara. In ijara, we're talking about a specified time. You know, you become my ajir khas, specified time, or something that is of sort of not necessarily ajir khas, not sort of my employee, but even if you work per piece, like a tailor, I give you like fabric to make a garment of it. The work is, you know, it's straightforward, right? You know, it's not. So work here in Jala, we don't know how long it takes, how much it takes. The second thing in Jala is what? That is not identifiable. The worker. So it's an interesting contract, because you're saying whoever does this for me will get that. And even if you don't agree with an particular individual, you say whoever does this for me, whoever finds my lost item will get such and such. We didn't talk to a particular person. Any person who finds your item will be entitled to that, such and such. Also, in Ja'ala, the duration is not specified. Duration is not specified. And the Jumhur, the Malikis and Shafi'is will say cannot be specified either. But let us say, according to the Hanbalis, the duration may not be specified. In Ijara, the duration has to be specified, right? Finally, in Ja'ala, the contract is aqd jaiz, not lazim. It is a non-binding contract. Non-binding contract. In ijara, it is lazim or jaiz? Lazim. Once we agreed on the rent or the service, it is binding. But in ja'ala, it is not binding. Whoever finds my lost item will get such and such. And then tomorrow, you have not found it yet. Tomorrow I say, I'll take it back. No one will get anything. Or then it is okay. Well, we can defer this until the end. Yeah. Well, yeah, I wanted to expand on this a little bit, but we can defer it until the end. So these are all different sort of features here between Aqd al-Ja'ala and Aqd al-Ijara. The Hanafis looked at this and said, no, this is too much. It is gharar. It is excessive risk-taking. You know, work is not known, worker is not known, duration is not known. You know, this is too much not known here. So it is gharar. The Jumhur said that because of the benefits in this, because, you know, because of this ayah and because of the hadith that he would mention and because of the benefit and all of that, this gharar is tolerable gharar. He will say, فمن فعل ذلك استحق الجعل لما روى أبو سعيد. Anyone who accomplishes the task will be eligible for the wage. This is supported by what Abu Sa'id al-Khudri narrated about the chief of a tribe who was stung or bitten by a snake or scorpion. The hadith says أن قوما لدغ رجل منهم فأتوا أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقالوا هل فيكم من راق فقالوا لا حتى تجعلوا لنا شيئا فجعلوا لهم قطيعا من الغنم. قال فجعل رجل منهم يقرأ بفاتحة الكتاب ويرقي ويدفل حتى برأ فأخذوا الغنم وسألوا عن ذلك النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال وما يدريكم أنها رقية خذوا واضربوا لي معكم بسهم. The guy who is stung, the chief of the tribe was stung after refusing to host some companions of the Prophet ﷺ who were on a journey. These tribe members asked the companions, can any of you treat him with ruqya? The companions replied, not unless you pay us. So they agreed to pay them a flock of sheep. One of the companions started reciting Surah al-Fatiha, the first chapter of the Quran, and gently, sometimes the editor forces things on me. Well, anyone who reads this book will understand that al-Fatiha is the first chapter of the Quran, but they want to make it readable by the general public. Sort of non-Muslims also and stuff like this. But anyway. Surah al-Fatiha, the first chapter of the Quran, and gently blowing his saliva onto the sting wound until the patient was cured. They took the sheep and went and they asked the Prophet ﷺ about that, whether taking payment was lawful. He responded, how did you know the Fatiha is in fact a ruqya? Take what you were given and give me a share of it. Give me a share of it to confirm the wholesomeness of the price. To confirm the wholesomeness of the price. And to confirm not only the wholesomeness, because it could, he would have not told them, take it unless it was wholesome. To confirm that it is not khilaf al-awla, it's not suboptimal. It is not less than virtuous, less than dignified, Because had he not taken, some people would have said, but this is still inferior, suboptimal, sub-ethical, less than optimal, etc. But if the Prophet ﷺ said, give me a share of what you have taken, then that rules out that possibility. So this is like going to the doctor and telling him, if you fix it, you get you get paid. If you don't fix it, you don't get paid. So that is the proof of the majority. This ayah in Surah Yusuf, this hadith, these are proofs for the majority. And this hadith, obviously, they refused to host them, and that in that environment, that was so offensive beyond belief. They refused to host the people. Do you remember Surah Al-Khadr, Surah Al-Kahf, the story of Al-Khadr in Surah Al-Kahf? The second encounter, when they went to the village and they refused to host them. And then Musa said to Al-Khadr, why did you erect that wall? Why did you erect that wall? You could have taken a compensation for that. That's what the Sahaba did. They did like Musa suggested to Al-Khadr. If they refused to host you, they were so offensive to refuse to host you, because hosting people in that environment was a matter of survival. When you travel across the desert, if people are not kind to each other and you refuse to host people, that is actually subjecting them to demise. It's not an easy thing. So for the Arabs to refuse to host people, travelers, wayfarers, that was extremely, extremely offensive. So this is the proof then. Then the Sheikh said, وَلَوْ الْتَقَطَ اللُّقَطَ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَبْلُغَهُ الْجُعْلِ لَمْ يَسْتَحِقَّهُ. Anyone who happens to find the lost item before knowing of the wage or compensation would not deserve it. Anyone who finds the lost item before knowing about the wage or compensation would not deserve it. So the person, you found the lost item before you've known that there is a prize for finding this lost item. Now you're not part of this contract. You don't deserve the prize. Because when you find the lost item, your obligation is what? Return it to the rightful owner. That's your obligation. No one is, so you're not doing anybody a favor here. But if someone said, whoever finds my lost item will get that prize, and then you act upon this and look for it and find it, you get that prize. You're entitled to that prize. Now we said this contract of Jala is a non-binding contract, meaning anyone can take it back. Aqd jaiz versus aqd lazim. Aqd jaiz, according to the fuqaha, aqd jaiz means any party can withdraw from the contract without the approval of the other party. Now, if I am the worker, I can say, well, I'm not interested in this anymore. Walk away. If I am the employer or the person who asked for the job to be done, I can say, I'm taking it back. You have not finished yet. You've not finished yet. You have not found my lost item. You have not finished building the wall for me. You have not finished fixing the transmission for me. I'm taking my car. And that's it. You're not entitled to anything. Okay. No, are you not entitled to anything? You are. If it is the worker that is pulling out from the contract, the worker is not entitled to anything. And that's understandable. If it is the employer that is pulling out from the contract, now the worker started working. The worker built you half of the wall. Do they get compensation for half of the wall?
Sure.
No. They get ajr al-mithl, customary compensation for the work you've done. So, قد يجب المسمى في صحيحه فوجب أجر المثل أو كما قال في باطله أو في فاسده which means what? If المسمى, the specified compensation, if you get into a contract where the specified compensation becomes a binding في صحيحه, if the contract is valid, then if the contract is fasid, if the contract is fasid, meaning invalid, فوجب أجر المثل, then you're entitled, wajaba means it becomes binding. Ajr is compensation. Al-mithl is the equal. It is the customary compensation. It is the fair market compensation, customary compensation for that work. Let us say I told you it is $200 to build this wall for me. And the work that you have done is estimated at $75. You get the $75. You don't get the $100, which is one half of the wall. You get the $75. Fair market value for the work that you have done. If you finished, you get the $200. You can't go back and say, I take it back. you will get the customary compensation. No, we agreed on 200. We agreed on 200. I get the 200 because I'm done. I found your lost item. I finished building the wall for you. I fixed the transmission of your car. I get the agreed upon amount. Now, a couple of issues here. One is forget now the couple of issues there were. One issue, for sure, I don't want to forget this. What if there is no agreement? But the other issue that I wanted to talk about before, duration. Couple of issues here. First issue is duration. The default for Aqd al-Jala is that you don't specify duration, because that's what it is about. The work, we don't know how long it will take, how much work it will take. Fix the transmission of my car. In the past, this used to work for find my lost item. You don't need to specify duration, right? Whenever you find it, bring it back. I'll pay you this much money. The Malikis and Shafi'is sort of insisted on this. You cannot specify a duration. You could always say, I recant, I take it back, because it's an unbinding contract. Why do you need to specify duration? You could always say, I'm taking it back. The Hanbali said you could specify a duration. And that Hanbali position is very important nowadays for gharamat al-ta'khir, late fees. We said late fees, if what is binding on me is money, I can't be charged late fees, because that would be a riba. But if what is binding on me is a service, a product, a job to be finished, like let's say I agree with a contractor, for instance, to build a wall for me, and it takes a couple of weeks. He takes 6 months. Well, I'm hurting. Can I ask for gharamat ta'khir, late fees? Yes, I can ask for compensation because of, their delay. Nowadays, no one can work without that Hanbali viewpoint. You can't. You have to determine a duration. Otherwise, you bring in someone to paint your, in Egypt, for instance, you bring someone to paint your apartment, and then they take a couple of years, because they picking up other jobs, and going all over the place. So you have to say, well, you have to do it within a month. If you don't do it within a month, so it opens the room for late fees. It opens room for late fees to actually penalize the worker if they are late. Okay, so that's the first one. So you could specify duration. Along with the Jala, you could specify the duration. Another one is percentage. So we said in Jala that you have to specify the compensation. And that's agreed upon by Maliki, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis. Hanbalis added a little bit of flexibility to this according to one variant report that is not the authorized. So according to the authorized, the view of the three mazahib that permit Jala in the first place, we said that we're not talking about the Hanafis from the beginning because they don't allow the whole thing. So when we talk about the Jumhur here, we're talking about 2 out of 3. When we say Jumhur, we're talking about 2 out of 3 because the Hanafis are not allowing the entire thing. Okay, so the Malikis and Shafi'is and Hanbalis, they all agreed that in Jala you have to specify an amount. You cannot basically designate a percentage, nasib, or a percentage. You cannot say if you find my lost item, you get half of it. You can't say that. That's according to the authorized view of the three madhab. The Hanbalis said you could. Not the Hanbalis. A weaker report within the Hanbali madhab said you could do that. Nowadays, a lot of people resort to that. The last point that we wanted to say is if there is no agreement, so now someone, like if you go to the train station, for instance, I use Egypt because that's where I'm from. I don't know if that happens here. Like you go to the train station and then you have like two heavy bags, or actually at the airport, not at the airport because they should be working for free. But you go to the train station and someone is waiting by the door of the train. You come down with two heavy bags, or you come off the train with two heavy bags, and someone picks them up from you. They pick them up from you. There is no talking here. Let's say that you're deaf and mute. So someone took the two bags from you and walked next to you to your car, walked with you a mile to your car or to the taxi or whatever. And then they're there. There was no agreement, right? There's no agreement. So the majority said you could actually walk away. You could just take your bags and walk away. There was no agreement. But there is a Hanbali view that two scenarios here. Without an agreement, you're bound to pay the person. One is the case of emergency. If someone saved your property from fire, for instance, walked in and saved your property, you say there was no agreement. But had I waited to agree with you, you would have lost the property. So the Hanbalis say here that he's entitled to ajr al-mithl. He's entitled to customary compensation. The other one, just some people in the madhab say, but it is still controversial. Some people in the madhab say, if the person is known to perform a particular job, and you permit them to perform it, to perform a particular job for compensation, for pay, and you permit them to perform it, you ought to pay them ajr al-mithl, customary compensation. Customary compensation. Because this guy who is waiting, it is given, it is understood, it is an implied thing, non-written, that when he takes you all the way to your car, that he will want some compensation of some sort. And that brings us to the end of this chapter, and it was not, it was not too hard to finish two chapters today because they're shorter. And that's it. We have some time, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. We allow the people 5-7 minutes to leave, and then we'll start the questions and answers.